yourself with the right relationships. So imagine if you are surrounded by people that drain you, well, change your circle. If they fuel you, right? They encourage you, you feel it in your body. That's a good stress. That's a good response, and it limits the stress, right?
On my $1,000,000 hustle. It's
the $1,000,000 Hustle Podcast, where we keep it real, I stated entrepreneurship wisdom. Learn to think like a millionaire and hustle like you're broke. Here's your host, Billy the Kid, aka Billionaire.
think like a millionaire and hustle like you broke. This free game to change your life, you better so. Think like a millionaire and hustle like you broke.
Welcome to the $1,000,000 Hustle Podcast, baby. It is your boy Billy the Kid, aka BDK, aka Billionaire in this mug. Wow. So the episode I just recorded, guys, I'm so big on health, and not just even like physical health, but mental health. Obviously, mindset podcast, and I truly believe that health is wealth. Like, without that, guys, like, you could have 100 plus thousands or whatever many problems going on right now, but if one of them is not your health, then you don't have a problem. And when one of them is your health, then that is the only problem that you have, and that is the only focus at that time that you have is your health. And I truly believe in that and stand by that. And so this episode was amazing in that aspect. We got to talk about all that and just having the positive mindset and all that. I cannot wait for you guys to listen. Shout out to Dr. Remina. This was amazing. I can't wait for her to jump into our mastermind. And those of you who are interested in the mastermind, guys, like after you listen to this episode, like, these are the kind of people that we're surrounding ourselves with. The Get Uncomfortable Mastermind. Shout out to every member in that group. We talked about it, like surrounding yourself with people that fill you up, not drain you. And that is what we're doing. It is so important to get around the right people. And the thing, guys, is that, it's an investment at the end of the day. Yes, there is a fee. And I talked about it on the podcast. Like, when I used to sell my CDs, I would at least sell them for $1, because if I gave them for free, people would just throw them out the window. And if they did throw them out the window after they paid the $1, at least they paid for it. But they would at least give it a play. And that's what's important. I'm a student myself. Like, I'm part of other groups as well. And I think it's a lifelong situation that you have to put yourself in when it comes to surrounding yourself with masterminds and stuff. It's just a fee, but I promise you that fee, guys, it's an investment that's going to pay. Like, everybody in that group has made money with it. Like, we've made each other money within each other, right? Like, within the group. And that right there has paid for more than just a membership fee, because it keeps happening. It's not just the one time that, we're all doing business with each other. So that's one. And then two, just the life changes that I've seen. I'm so proud. Those of you who are listening that's in my mastermind, like, I'm so proud of you. I truly am. And I've said it to you face to face. I've said it to you digitally, and I'm going to keep saying it because I truly am. Like, I see the change. I see the new you. So that's the kind of people you want to surround yourself with. So if you're interested, info@billythekid.com. Shoot me an email with your story to see if this is the right fit. As of right now, we are closed. The group is closed. We're not taking any new members because we want to keep it, in the small atmosphere, we'll call it. But send us an email, because whenever there's a spot available, we do reach out, and we have a new member actually joining from that, essentially. So info@billythekid.com. Power of Being Uncomfortable out now, guys. Grab a book, life-changing. If you haven't listened to it, it's an audiobook as well. And then New Era Lending, guys. If you need any lending for your real estate portfolio, whether it's to flip a house or to fix it so that way you could rent it after, hit me up. Hit me up, man. info@newerarealestateLLC.com. Any lending, or if you know anybody selling a house, I'm also shopping around for a few houses myself. and then New Era Construction LLC.net. I just wanted to throw those out there because I have done some good business with some of the listeners, and I appreciate you. So let's keep it rolling, baby. It's 2025 if you're listening to this. It's $1 Million Mind Day, right? $1 Million Mind Day. So $1 Million Hustle. But I think that's all I got, guys. And it was just Christmas, I guess. I want to throw that in there, too, because it's the next day after Christmas. Shout out to all the family. Like, we had a great time. We had like 3-4 different Christmases that we had, and just it's amazing. Thank you for being you, and thank you for either having us over or coming over. Just amazing time. Yes, that is when I'm recording this. It'll definitely be later after you listen to it. It won't be during Christmas, but here we are. And I truly believe that the $1 Million Hustle podcast, guys, like, it has lifelong, and it's a lifetime product that you could listen to it, in the summer, you could listen to it in the winter, or you could listen to it 5 years from now, and I promise you that you're going to gain something out of it if you do what it takes, if you take action. But enough of the yapping. Here it is, Dr. Remina. Let's get it, baby. Vámonos. Welcome to the $1 Million Hustle podcast, baby. It is your boy, Billy the Kid, a.k.a. BDK. I am super excited today. I've been watching your stuff on Instagram, and there's a lot of cool facts, and I have a feeling that there's going to be a lot of that in this podcast. And it's actually, I would say, one of the most important area in our lives, whether you're an entrepreneur or not, and whether you're trying to do anything crazy in life, we'll call it, right? Like any crazy business or anything. Besides that, like, I think it's the number one point that we need to touch, and I'm excited to have you. How are you doing today?
I am so good. Thank you for having me on. I am so excited to have this amazing conversation.
Awesome. Thank you. And at the beginning, I just like to obviously let people know who you are and why you're here, right? So if you could tell us, where were you born, and kind of how you got to where you're at now.
Sure. It seems like a lifetime ago every time I reflect on how I got here to today. So I was actually born in Denmark. At that time, my grandmother was a refugee from Africa, and my mom moved from Pakistan. And so the place that was accepting people like us happened to be in Denmark. And so that's where I was born. Eventually, my parents met. We moved to the United States. Of course, they had a long way to get to where we were as they moved from a developing country, Pakistan, of course. So as they came along with the generational trauma, which, as I mentioned, started with my grandmother. We come to the United States. It provided a better opportunity for myself as well as my brother. But with that, as I mentioned, there was generational trauma. We didn't grow up with the best resources. So already immediately, I had to figure things out on my own. I was the first one in my family to get a college education. And so the journey to even do that, which is so important because education is the equalizer that will get you the tools where you need to be to get into that $1 million mindset, right? So I took that journey. I came from that South Asian background where I had to break that tradition where I was told, well, girls only get married and have kids, and that's all you do. Just don't even worry about the rest. And there's something inside of me that said, no, I want something different. I want something more. I have to figure out the resources. We didn't have the resources. Well, what do? I need to break this cycle because I don't want to live in a family again. Granted, my parents give us a lot, right? Of course, you come with a lot of good, ethical, hardworking values, but that's not what's going to feed the next generation. That's not what's going to keep the next generation going and break that cycle. So I joined the military. And if you see me, I'm 4'11" and a half, and that half makes a difference. So I joined the military, and immediately after high school, I was deployed. I was deployed to Iraq, and I learned a lot more than I thought I got out of it, right? I thought I was going to join the military to break out of that household, number one, to get financial means to do something with my life. But growing up, I was never told, hey, you're good enough to go get an education. You're good enough to go get something outside. Even if I thought about being a doctor, that never occurred to me because it wasn't even something I saw in my household. So when I was in the war zone, this is where this biggest turning point happened to me. I was surrounded by sandbags and a big rocket hit a big gas tank and there was a huge explosion. First, I was like, thank God I didn't die. And then immediately I thought, you know what? I'm too young. I haven't lived. I need to do something else with my life. What is it that I'm going to do? I'm tired of people telling me I'm not good enough and I don't have the resources, so I'm going to make it happen. And that's when I decided, you know what? I've always had that burning desire to be a doctor because I wanted to help people and I wanted to do more. And so that was just the tipping point. So I got back to stateside. I figured out what I needed to do to get an education. And each step, here's the other thing about it. So, yes, you think about being a doctor, the conventional route, but each step of my journey, the universe presents lessons until you're ready to learn them. And they'll keep representing themselves, I believe. And so, in this point, yes, okay, that was the first lesson. So, I believe, of course, my whole concept of the human body is complex, right? We're all unique. We're mind, body, and spirit, not just a body of organs. I experienced that, and it was placed within my genetics, I feel like, and how I could preach this today and help others. So come along. I finally get through. I get into, I did my time in the military. It helped paid for my education. Fast forward, needless to say, there was a lot of, at that time, you could say inner trauma that built up. I mean, imagine when you want to break that tradition of trauma, but then also make yourself better, it carries along with you. What are you going to do? How does it present? And that's why I'm such a big advocate for also mental health and being your authentic self, right? So all these steps they presented. Getting into college. So I went to UT in Austin. And through that, I still didn't even believe, even though military helped me pay for that, and even though I was there, it's that imposter syndrome. We talk about it. And a friend of mine told me that, you know, imposters are the only ones that don't have imposter syndrome. So that's something that I carry within myself. I'm like, okay, I'm good enough to make it and I can do this. So I was presented with anxiety and I didn't know where that came from at that time. And this is where this is important because you were thrown with conventional medicine. At that time, it wasn't talked about, right? Conventional medicine says, okay, here's some medicine, maybe some talk therapy, and that's it. But within that time, I was introduced to a holistic way of living, right? Of taking care of yourself outside of what convention teaches you. And I came across with this amazing teacher who taught me, he trained in India, so he taught me what it was to meditate, how to properly utilize all these avenues, right? And so I went down this route to explore even further. So when it was my time to apply to medical school and all these struggles showed up, I knew how to use these tools to breathe through it, to focus my mind, to strengthen my mind and get into that battle zone, not in the one in the field, but in your mind.
Love
So
it.
I took that lessons, right?
There's so much in there, and I love it. Like your story is just amazing. The first thing that I couldn't help but think was, it's so true. Like your purpose is in your pain, right? Like, and all the stuff that you went through, and it just hit me because same thing, all those traumas and all the anxiety, like all those things. I've been there myself, and I feel like now looking back, it was a blessing. And I just heard that through your story because that's what it sounded like, right? Like even it's funny if you weren't watching, guys. Like I would rewind to where you were telling us about the strike, and you were smiling, and I think that says a lot about your story. It truly does. It like gave me some goosebumps because I feel like we all have that moment, and I want to dig a little bit more into that because I truly do believe that as the negative thing is happening, Sometimes it is hard to see beyond that, right? Because that's all you're boxed in at that moment. But not knowing that that strike right there is the time for you to change your life, for you to move on to the next level. And I will say that every time you move on to the next level, there is pain associated with that because you're essentially shedding the old you. You're moving on to the next phase in your life. And that's painful, guys. Like, just think about even celebrities, how much they get, you know, they get criticized a lot whenever they go to the next thing that they're doing or the next person that they become because they're always on the spotlight. So if you could dig a little bit more, and if you agree with me, disagree, please just let me know. I would love to hear your point of view on that.
Oh, absolutely. 100%. Each level at that time, you have a choice. You could be in the victim mindset because especially when you don't come from being a minority, coming from lack of resources, you don't want to carry that victim mindset. So you could either do that, but the situation is not going to change, right? Or you look at this, and in that moment, yes, it doesn't seem like it's a lesson, but it is. It's the pain that is worth learning what you need to and take it to that next level. And I agree, each next level brings along new challenges, brings along, and yes, celebrities do get a lot of hate, but so do people moving on to the next level, right? I mean, think about the people you surround yourself with now. It's probably not the same people that you grew up around, right? That's because you're growing, you're shedding who you surround yourself with, you're shedding your old ways of thinking, and you're able to present yourself and prepare for the next level in your life. And I agree with that because in that moment, I didn't know what I would use that for, but I see now. I mean, personally too. And I just feel like I've grown so much. I can use that mindset now. I've become more resilient, and it uses that in each step, whether it's in my personal life, whether it's in my professional life, and also in my private concierge practice. And that's what I use. I feel like it gives me the ammo to set me apart because a lot of people lack compassion. And that's where it comes into if you break that victim mindset, if you're going to use the grit and that resilience, you become more authentic, you become more relatable, and you can be of service to people. So I absolutely agree.
Love it. And it's so true that I feel like everything that like those of you who are listening right now, just trust me, if you're going through it as you're listening to this podcast, first of all, congrats because the stuff that you're talking about today, like it's life changing. And so if you're listening to this podcast, I would say that's literally the first step. You're gonna listen to some great insights of what you can do because we all go through it, guys. Like we're human, but I will also tell you that as you go through these levels, there is a brighter side. So again, if you're listening and you're stuck right now in this dark moment or depression, anxiety, all that, like I promise you that as you go, as you stated, I love that you get to actually like you learn how to deal with it and actually get out of that mindset, right? To be more positive and all that. And a lot of people think like when we say, "Oh, think positive" and all that, like it means like act like nothing is going on in the world, and that's not what we're saying. Because like right now, I'm looking out my window and it's gloomy, but I could sit here and be like, "Oh my God, it's gloomy," or I'm actually happy that it's gloomy because I'm still in the Christmas spirit. And yes, we're recording this the day after. But I love it, love it, love it. You also talked a little bit about trauma carrying with you.
Mhm.
And since we're kind of in the subject here, can you dig a little bit more into that?
Sure. And before I add on, I wanted to sprinkle a little bit science
Please,
behind
please.
your brain. So your brain has the ability to rewire itself. And so, yes, like you said, it's not just being positive and ignoring everything. You're literally able to rewire your brain, and that rewires the rest of your body's chemistry. I mean, how impactful is that? And it all starts with your thoughts and habits. And if you're like, well, Dr. Ramina, I mean, like, how is that even practical? Well, a simple tip that I want your listeners to even start applying, because, the new year starts and everyone's like, new year, new me, but you want to create sustainable, actionable steps that are going to change and keep that with you. So if you even start in the morning with gratitude. Science shows that your brain creates new connections by a simple act of practicing gratitude, be it a simple positive thought, be it just breath work, like just take a deep breath, don't reach for your phone, just breathe. And I promise you, slowly you rewire your body. Science says it, it's not made up. So
Yo, love it, love it, love it. It's man, I can't wait, and please keep doing that because though I feel like those are like I said at the beginning, and I knew it that we were gonna have all these different
little pearls,
science
yeah.
facts and tips, and to back it up and to go even further, those of you who are listening, smile right now, and while you're smiling, your brain doesn't know the difference between a real or a fake smile. So when things just are looking crazy, you might look crazier, but you're gonna feel better because your brain doesn't know that if even if you just smile. That's why anytime you see me, I'm always smiling, man. Just because we're alive at the end of the day. You know, it reminds me of you know, you see it all over the internet. But if somebody said, "Hey, I'm gonna give you $10 million right now," would you take it, Dr. Ramina?
Well, it depends. Are there strings attached?
So actually, here's the biggest string attached is if I said I'm gonna give you this $10 million and you said, "Yeah, I'll take them," the only string is that tomorrow you don't get to wake up.
Hmm.
Would you take them then?
Oh, yeah. See, you always got to see. You
And
can't
that
put a person.
it's so deep because that's telling me that we're already worth that and more. Because I
Yeah,
wouldn't, right? Like if you offer me that, I wouldn't take it. So it's just remember where you're at right now, guys, and just know that just blinking, like you said, like take that deep breath, like it's little things that matter. So would you like to add a
absolutely.
little more to that?
Absolutely, yes. And so, and yeah, I mean, you're producing happy chemicals, your neurotransmitters, your brain, your hormones. It's doing some good things just by smiling and practicing the reset. The power of pause is what I like to call it. So,
Love it.
and that, yeah, I can transition into that trauma. So, trauma, there's different ways. Trauma is essentially stress, right? It's stress that continues. And how that plays into, and I'll blend a little bit of science and then also how that applies and how you break it. So we all have stressors in our life, right? And so your brain and your body doesn't know the difference between actual stress and trauma, or it's interpreting it, right? And so when you think about trauma, I believe the stat was it carries over at least 5 generations. I mean, pause and
Wow.
think about that. Like your grandmother's, it's passing on. And because it wires into your genes, it's built into your genes. And so it goes back to when you think about that stress response. So there's this hormone called cortisol. Cortisol, and break it down, it's just basically your main hormone. There's a lot of chemical messengers, I'll just simplify it, that play along with this. So when you have good stress and bad stress. Good stress, your sympathetic nervous system, your fight or flight response, it's there to serve for you to fight or flight. So if you're getting chased by a bear, you're producing that chemical response so you could fight. I mean, you don't want to stop and like eat and enjoy food at that time, right? So you want to run. So as you're running, that's good. But the thing is, when you're breaking free from that small, like that emergent stress, and you're escaping that bear, you have a moment to pause. Your body's resetting. It's safe. But if it keeps going, now what does that translate to? An active stressor, or are you thinking it's a stress? Are you worried about work? Are you worried about your significant other? You think they're cheating on you. You think you're about to get fired, but take it a step further. Lifestyle too, right? So if you look at, are you eating highly processed foods, right? That sets off the stress response in your body. Are you drinking too much alcohol, smoking, not sleeping enough, right? Not exercising enough? What are your relationships like, right? So those are the ways. Are they draining you? Or is it a gain, right? So it's truly a holistic response, right? A holistic response that connects your mind, body, and spirit. And it's science. So when you think about trauma, all these, like that small pearl I even dropped about even breath work, that connects. So there's an entire nervous system. We all know that the brain is the nervous system, but you also have a gut, the gut brain axis. So what you eat, if your gut is inflamed, your brain is inflamed and vice versa, but also your thoughts, right? So there's this big nerve called the vagus nerve. And why that's important is when you even breathe, when you do breath work, even taking a few seconds in and a longer exhale out, that resets your body, that stress response, right? So that's simple things you could do. That's just a stress response. Now, when you talk about trauma, there's what I love about being in this space that conventional medicine misses the gap on this. All they're going to do is they treat you with standard approach, which is why part of my journey is, there's not, if I need to change something and if I really want to impact people, I need to create my own way of doing medicine. So of course, yes, I got the education to help, but to create it in this way, to get all the science-backed modalities that is missing in conventional medicine. And this is a big gap here. If you try to address your trauma, right? In conventional medicine, they may do talk therapy, they may throw antidepressants, but then you have side effects with those, right? And there's a certain percentage that doesn't benefit from there. So what does that tell you, right? Harvard is one of the amazing institutions that is showing proof now in this functional medicine world that lifestyle truly combined with all these other modalities have like a 90% success rate. What does that tell you? If you show people the impact of sleep, how to de-stress properly, like actively de-stress, figure out the root cause of that trauma, but actually do the trauma work. Not like the simple bandage approach, but the trauma work, right? There's so much out there. There's somatic work. There's like hot cold therapy, like cold plunges. That's so good, right? Like that resets your body so many ways. Then, of course, you look at what type of food are you eating? There's this big study that showed the ketogenic diet, right? It's not just a fad diet to look good in your swimsuit, right? But I mean, you do get that, but you also get so much more because what the key there is, it's not processed foods, it's not processed wheat, and that causes inflammation everywhere. So initially it was studied for epilepsy, seizure disorders, but what they found, going back to the study from Harvard, is combining good food, nutrient dense foods, sleep, lifestyle, everything you think about in this space that's missed in conventional medicine has a success rate. And you know what? You don't have side effects. The side effect is success, breaking that trauma stress response and doing things that's sustainable, specific to you, because we're all different. We're not a standard person.
Yeah, love it. Love it, love it. I do have a question, Dr. Remina. So because you hear this a lot, like the whole, any disease almost starts with your thoughts, or whether you want to call them thoughts, mind, brain, whatever it is. Can you school us on that? Because I am a believer on that. I think even, if I go back to like my darker times of depression and, just craziness, I'm pretty sure I cured myself from a lot of stuff after that, right? Like after studying that it was all a mindset and all that. So can you give us a little bit more on that?
Oh, absolutely. It goes back to the science of neuroplasticity, right? When you rewire your brain. So if you are going to think negative thoughts, your body is going to produce those negative chemical messengers. It's going to go down. It's going to be a self-fulfilling prophecy. So that's why even starting with the mind, I mean, think about it this way, right? Like, and this is where it gets a little bit existential, I guess you can say, right? This is where there's a lot about the law of attraction, right? And so, yes, in a sense, you could say it's going beyond what's, always science backed, but it is. It's quantum physics. You could even talk about bringing that together. So yes, so if it starts with rewiring your brain, it's in your hands, literally. Do you want to rewire it to be a negative mindset or a positive mindset? So yes, it goes back to that. So if you're going to think, I mean, think about it when you're sick. If you're like, oh, I'm going to be sick, I'm going to keep getting sick. Yes, you are going to. But if you say, oh, I'm going to fight through it, I'm going to get through it. Oh, I can do this task. It is. It's a mindset. And like you said, during the dark days, it's hard to break down. I mean, a lot of people, a lot of successful entrepreneurs, a lot of successful people, a lot of them think differently. It's the small percentage. So a part of it is loneliness, right? You feel lonely, you may feel misunderstood. And so if you stop that cycle, you're a winner. You really are. You're just different. You're meant to do something different. So yes, it goes back to your thoughts. I completely agree. And you want to go back to the science of neuroplasticity.
And I love what you said there. Because the this podcast is basically for the top 3% action takers, right? And
Mhm.
nowadays, I even in my mastermind, we've talked about even just a 1% of people out there like that. It's a tough club to get into, but we can always strive to. Like, it's definitely not impossible. But it takes all these steps that we're talking about, and essentially, like I said, health is wealth at the end of the day. That's the number one thing, because that's why I brought up like the 10 million earlier, because at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. You know, I'm gonna say it wrong, but there's that quote, or saying that basically says how, when you have health, you have all these other problems, but then when your health is low, you only have one problem to focus on, and everything else doesn't matter at that point. So,
Oh,
the next,
absolutely. Yeah. Can I jump in?
yes,
I want
please,
to
no,
elaborate
please,
on it
please.
too. And that's where, where I'm in this space where I still practice in the hospital setting, right? And I see if you don't take time for your health now, you will pay for it in the next decade of your life with your money as well as your time, right? And so what
Mm,
happens is more people are becoming knowledgeable that they can take this into their hands. And that's including mental health too, right? It's all of it. And what happens is you see people not taking time, even simple steps. And eventually, what happens is the aging process takes over, right? You start like simple things, eating the right type of protein, doing the right type of resistance training, the right mind, body, spirit, everything, lifestyle component to give yourself money in the bank health wise. So the last decade of your life, you're not in the hospital setting. So you see people in their aged and what's sad is like sometimes I see younger people because they don't take care of themselves, right? Is they'll end up in the hospital, in and out of the hospital, and eventually you just stay there. So there's no quality of life. You're missing out a lot. And so what I'm saying is this is a good wake-up call. There's tools in front of you to take a hold of your health now so you could be present. You don't have to be decrepit. You could be present. You could take actionable steps now with all the
mm.
lifestyle things that you have. So yes, your health, you got to invest in it now so you have more money in the bank. You have time. That's not
And
taken back.
Dr. Romina, is there a balance to it all? And what I mean by that is, the processed foods, right? Snacks or whatever you want to call them, alcohol. Is there a balance to that, as well as eating your apples and salads and all that?
I'm a firm believer in balance. I mean, you're also human, right? It's the holidays. You want to indulge, but that's the thing. You want to most of the time have a balance for the right things. And then you could splurge, right? And there's this term called metabolic flexibility. And what that simply means that your body is able to, because if the most of the time you're eating right, you're sleeping right, you've got your mindset right, whatever you do is most of the time right. Well, your body has enough going back to the money in the bank to be resilient and be flexing back and forth. Like, hey, I just had with my kids the other, like just this past few days, we had some cookies. It was good. We had some, you got to splurge, but then you go back to doing um, the right things most of the time. So, not to
Yes.
say that it's, right or wrong, but you want to be balanced. And part of that is, yes, have fun in the holidays. You're human. I mean, you want to enjoy everything in
I love
moderation.
that, and it's I think once you make it a habit, like, so for me, running a mile or two and then just doing some weightlifting, you mentioned it earlier, like, I'm not doing it to have a six pack or anything, which I think that is one of my goals, and I'm scared when that day comes, because I'm big on, like, once I set my mind to something, but. As of right now, it's been over a decade that I've been doing, my morning exercises, getting my body moving, my heart right. Um, and with that being said, also the last over a decade that I've been doing that, I've also taken the week off for the holidays, for example, where I don't do it, like this week. And it's crazy. You start feeling it, right? Like today, I'm like, man, like And I
Yeah.
might, it's crazy because the more you do it too, like even to this point right now, I might even jump in tomorrow, to the gym, even though it's not. Usually, I just take this week off, but and before it used to be like 2 weeks, the 2 weeks around the holidays that I would just be off.
Yeah.
So it does become a habit, is what I'm saying. And one huge thing that you said earlier, that there's a holistic way of living, and I would love to hear what that means to you. You mentioned, what part of it is meditation, but can you dig a little bit more on that? What are some steps and actually just some action, some stuff that people listening, myself, like we can start doing as soon as this podcast is over? Yo, we'll be right back to this great episode of the $1,000,000 Hustle Podcast. Before we continue, I want you to go grab a copy of my book, The Power of Being Uncomfortable. It is out on Amazon, it is out on Barnes & Noble, Walmart.com, Target.com, and everywhere else books are available. The great news, guys, is you could go to BillyTheKid.com and grab an autographed copy. That is right. I'm going to mail you an autographed copy right now. Audiobook is also available on Audible and everywhere else audiobooks are available. So go listen to it, go grab yourself an autographed copy, and I'll see you on the other side, baby. And now back to this great episode of the $1,000,000 Hustle Podcast.
Yeah. Something you just mentioned was the routine, and that goes back to discipline. It starts with discipline and actionable steps that you could start taking. So holistically, what I love doing is I take the best of Eastern and Western medicine, right? So we're the holistic in itself. It's not voodoo, right? People sometimes get that mixed up. But when you blend both and you practice what is effective and what is sustainable, yes, it's discipline and starting small. So let's start. This is what I like to do, and I advise people that I come across with when they just want to know how to start. Well, let's start small. It starts when you wake up, right? You rewire your brain and your body, and you start with balancing your circadian rhythm, right? And that ties into your health. So let's say when you first wake up, from the moment you wake up, do not reach your phone for your phone. Even if you have kids, wake up even starting 5 minutes before they get up. 5 minutes before your alarm normally goes off. I get it. Look, I got two boys and they are a handful. So I have to make sure I get my me time, right? And this is actually good for you to be more effective, because what you're doing is you're getting your self-care into, and that's so important. Again, going back to balancing that stress response, right? So the moment you wake up, give yourself a few minutes before everyone wakes up. Stay in bed, just breathe. Honestly, breathe. And if you're new to breath work, start with the simple box breathing. The Navy SEALs breathe before they go into battle, right? Because they're regulating their nervous system. So before you go into battle, between kids work, whatever you do, right? Breathe. If you have a religious practice, if you have a meditation practice, breathe. Gratitude, right? That's where it starts. So breathe, box breathing. It's just simply imagine a box, and you're doing 4 breaths in on the one line, 4 breaths, hold your 4 breath count, exhale 4 breaths. And you're doing that, and you'll slowly feel your heart rate slow down. You'll feel your monkey mind slow down. And what you're doing is, over time, you can extend that because you're creating that habit. It's a discipline, right? And so start with that. If you are a person that wants to exercise in the morning, awesome, do it. Do it. If you don't, start with getting outside after you do your morning breath work, your gratitude, your meditation, whether it's mantra, whatever meditation fits you, do it, okay? Because that's what's going to be sustainable. Go outside, get the first light, the first sunlight that comes out. It hits your eyes, your retina. It sets off a response, and it balances your hormones, your wake and your stress hormones, your wake sleep hormones. And that sets it across the whole rest of your day anyways, because it sets into sleep. If you get that first light, it produces happy hormones, chemicals. It helps balance your heart health and your sleep, everything, and your stress. So even if you start small with that, then practice throughout the day. Maybe on your lunch break, go get some fresh air outside. Maybe go stare at a window, breathe again, right? If you need to, you feel a stress response, that's the one tool you could take with you. Breath. And that ties into mindset and being in that present moment, not going down the cascade in the negative response, right? It's breathing. That's small. Then if you're ready to take the next challenge, right? if say food, right? Food is another challenge, right? I would say as you age, protein becomes more important. Protein is so important. And if you look at the recommended daily allowance, our government only tells you zero point 0.8 grams per kilogram of body weight. That's to prevent deficiency. That's not enough to be optimal, right? Optimal is there to be thriving. Optimal is something that conventional medicine misses the mark on, right? So say if you want to prevent age-related muscle loss, like say, look at your parents, look at you, for me, I look at my parents because we didn't have these tools before, right? I see that they lost a lot of muscle mass because they didn't have these tools. And there's a lot that goes into this, right? So muscle mass, part of it is eating the right type of protein and having at least 30 grams per meal. So what does that look like, right? If you're a meat eater, great, go for the high sources, get the grass-fed. Beef is great. Go for eggs. If you are one of dairy, if you can eat dairy, cottage cheese, Greek yogurt, nuts and seeds are great too, like chia seeds, and almonds, like all that. That's how you get it in. And then to make sure you build muscle, resistance training. That is so important as you age. So you start losing your muscle by the time you hit your 30s, right? So it's okay. You still have time to build it, right? By doing these tricks. And then, of course, decreasing your stress response, because the more stressed you are, it pulls away from building muscle, and it also affects the rest of your body, right? Your male and female hormones, you may feel like brain fog, you may feel like your hair is falling off, you'll start noticing changes in your body composition, libido, right? All that ties into balancing that stress response too. And again, it goes back to sleeping. You want to make sure you sleep, no blue screens from the moment you wake up, from that breath work, like I said, eating the right things. So it kind of goes back, and the right emotional support relationships, right? You want to battle loneliness. Loneliness is a negative factor. So fill yourself with the right relationships. So imagine if you are surrounded by people that drain you, well, change your circle. If they fuel you, right? They encourage you, you feel it in your body. That's a good that's a good response, and it limits the stress, right? And then going back to, let's see, so we covered exercise. Let's go a little bit further. Even if you start walking, if you're new, do that 5-10 minutes. Again, going back to what works for you. If you're there to take the next level, up your strength training game, right? That is what's going to keep your muscles strong and prevent you from falling as you age and breaking your, ending up in the hospital, right? As you exercise, you build the right strength. I wanted to circle back on nutrition. So I did talk about protein, fiber. Most in standard American diet, SAD diet, even though sometimes it's happy to eat like burgers and ice cream, right? But it's sad because it's a stressor in your body. So a lot of times you're missing out on the good nutrients like fiber. You need at least 25 grams of fiber a day. You want to bulk up on the probiotics to get your good microbiome, your bacteria. So going back to, remember, your body's connected, gut-brain axis, and your gut connects to everything else too, right? So think about if you want to do probiotics, right? Get diversity is what the key is. Yogurt, kimchi, kefir, all those good things, right? So I like to say, even if you choose like 3 servings a day, that's great. Take a spoonful, breakfast, lunch, dinner, whatever, just get it in there. And then, of course, going on to a little bit more on the sleep. So sleep, you want to create that sleep routine. When I mentioned in the morning, wind down, reflect on your day, take that moment of pause and continue balancing your nervous system to get ready for sleep. Balance that circadian rhythm. Do something that is actively resting, not looking at Netflix, not scrolling, because your brain, there's a portion of your brain that needs to shut down. And the way it shuts down is do not look at screens. If you want to start small, do blue screen blockers and try to shut off your phone 30 minutes before bed, right? Small steps creates a habit eventually. And then going back to the stress relief, the mind, body, spirit connection, whether it's meditation, make that time, or it's a spirit or a religious practice, whatever it is, those create good movement in your entire body. It's sustainable. So I know I gave a lot of steps. Rewind, shoot me a message if I need to clarify. I don't mind. I love helping and talking. So I would say take these small actionable steps just to start. And then there's always ways to level up, right? There's always a level up, but start small.
Love it. Love it. Love it. And there's, again, I can talk to you all day. But I have a lot of questions. The next one that I want you to touch on a little bit more because you brought it up earlier, and then you said it again today. You know, surrounding yourself with people that fill you and not drain you, and that's huge. I feel like that was almost one of my whys on why I started my Get Uncomfortable mastermind, for example. Every day we text each other. The first few years that I wasn't even aware of such thing, like it felt lonely, right? And you mentioned that earlier too, that also gets to you. And so having this mastermind, a group of people that you surround yourself with, and any questions you have or anything, and we're always ready to just help each other, and you see the patterns of habits that they've gained through this. Some have been there for 3 years, some have been there for a few months, a year, right? And you see the change. So I know it's very impactful, and there's so many facts, even just with goals. Like you're more likely to reach goals, when you surround yourself with people like that. There's so many facts out there, but I want to hear you tell us why is this so important, and then also a second part of that question would be how do people do leave people behind, right? Because I think it's crucial, as your mindset is growing, like the conversations are just different with certain people, right? And it doesn't mean, right, that there's some that you should probably just cut the cord right away and who cares,
Yeah.
but then there's some that maybe they're nice, they're cool, and keep them around, right? Like they're your friends and all that, but also be mindful of certain maybe advice that they give you, because you don't want to get advice for marriage from somebody who got divorced, right? Like it's very essential. So I want to hear your point of view on that.
Oh, yes. Well, first of all, I love the fact that you have a mastermind. I saw your stuff on Instagram too, and of course, that's amazing because yes, when you look at who surrounds you and then kind of tying into sometimes you just can't control it, like say if they're your family, right? Well, I think this is where boundaries comes in, right? And kind of reflecting back on my journey, the younger me, the old me didn't have boundaries, right? And I'm sure, you grew to where you are today too, because at some point you realized you needed boundaries. Boundaries as in for also your mind, for you in general, right? There's so many types of boundaries. And so when you're talking about leveling up, people that are successful will know that certain relationships, certain people's, well, you just need to outgrow those, right? Where your energy goes, it's either a drain or a gain. So you want to be mindful of that, right? And so part of that is learning it. So reflecting back on my lessons is before I would, when I didn't realize what I was capable of, before I decided to learn my lessons and accepted and outgrow the imposter syndrome. Well, part of it is because I was surrounded by people that told me you're not good enough. You're stupid. Can you believe that? People said you're stupid. And of course, if you completely surround yourself with that, you're going to believe that. You're going to believe that and you limit yourself. Well, what happens? Well, first, yes, like you said, easily cut those people out. You don't need an explanation, right? But you need to have that self-confidence. You need to have respect your boundaries, your self-worth. That comes a long way after learning, right? What you're capable of after accepting that you are worthy, right? So part of that, yes, bye to those obvious no's, like no, take that energy elsewhere, level up. So say yes, surround yourself to the right people. And yes, it does so much for your body. You create that community. Community is protective. You do more together. You support each other. You're in the right room when you talk about opportunities of growth, not people, not small-minded stuff, right? Not things that are sabotaging, but people that lift you up like, hey man, I was thinking about you. Hey, oh, I got this perfect idea that could help you the next level. This, you need to meet this person, or that's a great idea. Someone that you open up your ideas and they don't shut you down and shame you, right? Like you're in a shame society, in a guilt society. You don't want that. And so when you talk about that top 1%, you're in the right room. That's the right room, not competition. It's lifting each other up. So when you are surrounded, so say you're in the right room, you are by the right people, and you don't want to take advice from a divorcee and you're married. Well, yes, like just be kind and say, okay, but don't take it to heart, right? And limit your time for people that drain you, right? And open up the energy and the opportunity to be around your crowd. That's the right room. They lift you up, you support each other, you talk about ideas, how to get better, to help people, to be of service to other people. Like it's an abundance mindset, and there's a difference. It's an abundance mindset. And so if, say, family, right? Family, sometimes you can't cut ties with family, right? But you have boundaries. You could practice your boundaries. Like, for instance, if you want to be around me, we're not going to have X, Y, and Z behavior. For instance, like money, right? No, you are not going to take advantage of money because sometimes family members may do that, right? No, you need to be sustainable. No, that's negative talk, right? No, you're not going to behave this way. Like you set boundaries and you teach them how to treat you. That's how you maneuver around the people you can't change, right? Um, Something else you said about when you're in that community, you do accomplish more. And actually, studies show that, like communities, the blue zones, right? The blue zones, they have a sense of community. They live longer and happier. And
Wow.
it's beautiful.
Wow. No, that's man. That's crazy. Like I just listening to you, I like I said, I could sit here and listen to you all day. It's so true because I'm so passionate about that. Sadly, and I've said it before and I keep saying it. I'm a hip hop artist, right? That's how I got
Mhm.
my we'll call it step in the door of entrepreneurship. Building my own record label and stuff. And at that time, I had 50 people around me. And yes, some of them are still around and they did encourage me. But even encouraging guys, like, there's actually a way to do it the right way. Like, it sounds crazy. But
Yeah.
what I mean by that is me, even as a coach now, like I take that very serious, right? Like if there's any accomplishment, like I want to make sure that they know how big of an accomplishment it is, even if it is a small win, a small accomplishment or anything, because that I know that will get in their brain, right? Like the stuff that we're talking about, and they're gonna start believing even more in themselves and in the stuff that they're doing in their business, etc. And then it comes back to me because also, guys, like a lot of times we forget, like the more people you help, the more you're gonna help yourself. It all comes back. Like it's this. I don't know. I'll just say it's magic, but obviously,
It's the
you
law of attraction. It's the
yes.
law of attraction and abundance. No, it's real.
And what I was saying, even with my music, is that the sad thing is that I know if back then, out of the 50 people I had around me, if most of them would have been encouraging me instead of making jokes, even though they were funny, right? Like they were trying to be funny and all that. Maybe they didn't even mean to do that, but they did, right? Like I would have gotten bigger faster at that time, if that makes sense. And the
Yeah,
crazy thing is that now that I'm being mindful of that, and especially like I said, I'm blessed to have people like you, right? Like even through digital, like the digital era is crazy, guys. Like
it is.
we're over here having these great conversations. I guarantee you that we're both gonna leave our rooms just feeling better, and we're gonna accomplish more because we're surrounding ourselves with people like that. So I know that has a lot to do with my success nowadays. For sure. So thank you for sharing that. And if you want to add anything, you let me know.
No, I want to say
We'll be right
Before
back.
we continue,
Go subscribe to Billy the Kid YouTube.
that is Billy DHA Kidd.
Also, go follow Billy the Kid Music on Spotify
Pandora, Apple Music.
and everywhere else.
Music is available.
And now, back to this great episode. Let's go.
Hopping out the two, no, we're number 2, foe. Feel like Kobe, though I'm winning, need to do more. My mama sorry, college wasn't for me. Street smart, no degree, just like Kobe. Self-made boss with a suit like a mogul. I'm the new era, you see it on my logo.
congrats to you and good job to you. Like you are a coach yourself, so you deserve praise too, to break out of, yes, that's great, like being an entrepreneur, starting there, but shedding those old ways. And paying attention to that inner self that's telling you, wait, that doesn't seem right. Like that was kind of maybe a backhanded compliment, but you knew your own worth and you listened to it. A lot of times we shut that voice down and
Mm,
it does hold us back and it slows our growth. But that's also the next part of leveling up, right? And so that's amazing you did that. I mean, you're obviously successful, but like it took a journey to get there. You didn't wake up being successful, but also in that, I wanted to highlight that that's part of the next level. If you feel like something is off that worth, listen to it. That's your intuition. And the more you tune into it, the more you honor it, the more you're going to be better at it. And
mm.
say no to things that don't serve you.
Wow, love it. And that's why, Dr. Ramina, my first like chapter is on my book, The Power of Being Uncomfortable, is
Oh,
if and excuse the language, but just straightforward. If they shit, they will laugh at you, and meaning everybody will have an opinion at the end of the day,
yes.
right? Like it, and you have to really break that through, especially when you're first starting. I mean, everybody that you're surrounding yourself with is in the same box, right? That comfort zone. And the whole point
Mhm.
is for you to break out of that box so you can go to the next box, right? Because even right now, like as successful as you are, as successful as I am, we are in a box right now that we're breaking to the next level, and that's the beauty of living, guys. Like that just like shut down some goosebumps in my body because it's so true. Like that is why we're living is to become better. I was just thinking during the holidays, also family members that are gone now, and I just couldn't help but think like, how did they feel when they passed? Like, were they happy
Yeah.
with what they accomplished, with what they did with our family, essentially, right? Like with our family, and the sad thing is, half of the time they don't even know what a trauma is, and especially now I'm getting more cultural, like on my
Yeah,
culture,
of course.
my culture, and that's why I'm so passionate about teaching these things because it is a thing, and opening that third eye will do a lot. So
Yes, I
I
love you said third eye. Yes, absolutely. And a little bit to emphasize even more, like culturally, it's what was normal to them, right? That's all they knew
Mhm.
was to survive. So we take the lessons that they passed to us, and I would like to say that they were proud because if it wasn't for the sacrifices they made, you and I wouldn't be having this opportunity to be here, right?
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
feel like we can reflect back and kind of we can be grateful for this. We can be
Hmm.
grateful for the lessons that they passed to us.
Yeah, yeah.
Now I'm just worried about what's going to happen to our kids because they won't see this, right? They'll be like,
I know. And actually, can you talk a little bit about that? Because obviously they have it well. I was just having a conversation with someone about they were just praising essentially my wife and I just of how good our girls are and how
"Mm,
they behave and I love that because again it goes back to the obviously now I believed it, right? Like them telling me, surrounding
mm,
myself with good people like that, them telling me that makes me believe and go even harder, right? Because we have the thing is, guys, like you can't just think these things. You have to take action, and we truly have. Like any area of my life, I can tell you that I've taken action, and that's how we've broken these chains, right? Like that's how we made a difference. But I want to hear your perspective because it is easy, right? Like they have it easier, but I still believe that we have to teach them certain things with money and all that because, like my wife, it's funny. We were driving. This was a couple years ago, and my daughter and she was jokingly saying like, "Well, we're rich, right? Right, mom and dad." So then my wife turns around and she's like, "No, your dad and I are rich. You're not."
that's
So
hilarious."
and then it turns into a lesson of like, hey, this
Yeah.
is what you got to do, and like literally telling them, guys, like they're listening because there's times where they might not show it, but then they'll be telling somebody else, oh yeah, well, this is how you do this, and that's when okay, you were listening. But I want to hear you on that, and then we can wrap this up. Unfortunately, it's top of the hour. Again, I could sit here and talk to you, but if you could just give us that one last nug, and then we'll wrap it up.
Sure. Oh, that is so true because so I have a well, just recently turned 6 and a 2.5-year-old. And it's just funny. They listen to everything. They pick up on body language. They learn so much. And so there was a moment, I think one of their toys broke or something. And so my 6-year-old, he's like, that's okay, Mama will buy a new one. And I was like, excuse me? Mama works hard for this money. And so like
Love it.
and so we had to like it turned into a lesson. And if you can't take care of things, then you got to learn there's consequences too. Things aren't easy. And now that his 6-year-old mind, and compared to my toddler, they actually comprehend things, right? They go to school, they learn the concept of money, they learn hard work. Like they'll see my husband and I come home after a long, hard day. And so this is funny. They'll mimic, like they'll pretend. Sometimes when I'm on shift at the hospital and I have like a phone call going off, he'll mimic me. He's like, "Mom, I'm on the phone. I'm with work." And so they'll be like, "Uh-huh." So I'm like,
Love
"Okay,
it.
I guess he's learning the concept of work." So,
Yeah, love
but
it.
like that, and then other lessons, right? Like taking care of your health. Like this weekend, I took my 6-year-old to lift weights with me, and it was so cool. Like he actually had this little 5 pound dumbbells, and he lifted them up. But he learned the concept of treating your body with respect, right? Treating the money with respect, the house that we live in, right? And like actually
Mm,
this morning, I don't know how he came up with the term homeless. And I was like, honey, do you know what homeless means? Do you know what that entails? And so we talked about life lessons, right? Um, and I know like we want to shelter them and slowly, small steps teaching them, but they'll have their own struggles too, right? Like it's their own
mm,
struggles, their own pressures of being in this world. And
yeah,
I want them to take some part of our culture and the struggles our family went through to learn where they came from,
yeah.
because that's what keeps you grounded.
And even to add on to that, you said like not to keep them so sheltered. It's so true because at one point, it's funny because some family members might not like it as much when our teens, because they are teens, so I feel, and then again, this is my opinion. I feel like at that point they can understand. We'll call it family drama or whatever. We just the thing is, I think it's very important not to ever tell them your opinion of somebody or hey that person is this, right? Like they will find out, guys. Like if you're listening to this, like please don't throw that, I'll call it poison, in their mind, because at that point, who's being the bigger person, right? Like you're not by poisoning their mind with a family member or and it's crazy because by experience I could sit here and tell you that they do see it themselves if you teach them what's right and wrong. um, and so nowadays, like, there's no filter with my teens. Like, there's no filter. If we're having a conversation about money or finances, whatever, health, like whatever it is, we're gonna have it with them in the car, with them on on the table, because it is that important. Like, they need to understand that real life is real life. Like, it's not it is hard, right? Like it is hard out there. That's why I understand it. But again, to make it a full circle, it's all in your head, guys. Like at the end of the day. So again, I could sit here and talk to you. Maybe we're gonna have to do a second
Let's
episode
do
or
it.
something
Let's do
because this
it.
has been amazing. But to respect your time, we'll go ahead and wrap it up. And essentially, at the end of the show, I just ask the same questions to every single person that is successful, right? And I just want to give you your flowers for thank you for just doing your part in changing the world. Because I think if we put these little dots like we are, I think we're damaging in a good way, right? Like we're doing some good damage out there. So I just want to thank you for that. So the first question that I have for you is, if you were to look back at your younger self, whether it's as a kid or a teen, what would be the advice you would tell yourself right now?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think I would look back and tell that little girl, you are good enough and you're good enough to start now. That's what I
Mm,
would say.
love it, love it, love it. I can relate to that. And then the next question is, so it's funny, the $1 million hustle, right? Like it's actually going to be translated into a book. I'm going to write a book for the $1 million hustle, and it's going to be, whether you want to call them habits or whatever, of what it takes to become that person. Again, guys, if you're listening to gain some money and make some money out there, it is totally okay. But there's a lot of work that you have to do with yourself in order for you to achieve that. And you can achieve it if you do certain habits. So with that being said, if you had to minimize your list to three things, so these are the three things that you have to do in order for you to become successful, in order for you to get to that $1 million hustle, what are the three things that you would tell somebody out there?
Oh, gotta condense it. Okay, that's a challenging question then. That's the challenge. Okay.
Love it. Very.
Well, I'm gonna be a big advocate. So you gotta get your mind right. So your mindset and how you do that. And mindset is it's complex as we just went through this amazing conversation. That's what I mean by mindset. It's that self-care, the mindset. That's how grit resilience happens. Mindset. Get your mindset right. And it's doing all these little hacks that keep you going. Two, education is the equalizer. Whether it's formal or informal, no one will tell you you're not good enough if you know your stuff. And you know your stuff because then you know how to get to the next level and be creative, get into that entrepreneurial side because you see a gap in the system, you become a disruptor and you make it that way. Education is the equalizer.
Love it.
Third, resiliency. Resiliency and discipline, blend that into one. Those are the habits. Yeah.
Wow, love it. And just like that, we're done. Love it, love it. No, and the last question that I do have for you is if you were to write a book, what would be the theme title for it?
Oh my gosh, I'm glad you asked. I'm actually writing my first book.
Love it.
I am writing my first book and hopefully it's out hopefully by March. That's what I'm going for. And I'm working on the title. I don't know. I'm playing around with the idea. Maybe y'all can tell me. Dr. Remina's playbook, Panjwani principles. But essentially, I'm going to give you a little sneak peek. It's going to be part memoir of the lessons I learned and gives you my philosophy of how to live that holistic life and be your true self. So that, yeah, I'm working on the
Love it.
title. Maybe one of those.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Where can people find you?
Easiest way is my Instagram. I keep it simple. It's Dr. Remina, DrRemina. And then, of course, my website, I am updating it too. So most of my updated like events coming up, wellness retreats, there's a lot of those around or events coming up, like speaking events, always on my Instagram. And then my website, if you want to work with me one-on-one, concierge style to level up your health. And that's also drremina.com. And then I also have a small podcast. Just I drop an episode, which by the way, I gotta have you on next.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Love it.
So yeah,
No,
and shoot me a message.
anything you need, please, like, don't hesitate. Like, again, that's been the whole point of this conversation, guys, is like surround yourself with people like her, because I promise you, like, if you spend a few conversations with her, whether it's paying to play, because that is a thing too. Like, I want you guys to remember, like, she did what she did and she is where she's at. So just imagine how fast she's gonna get you there if you pay her to get you there. Like, it is okay. Like, don't forget, like, even with myself, it's funny. I would do a free mastermind or coaching, right? But I know that if I do it for free, it reminds me of like the days that I used to go out and sell CDs. Like, I never gave a free CD out because guess what? They would probably just throw it out the window. There's no value there. So know your value. So therefore, even if the CD cost them $1, they would at least throw it in the CD player, right, to listen. And it is very important. Like, people pay, hundreds and thousands of dollars to go to college, but the stuff that she can do for you guys, like, it literally is life-changing, and you will see the change faster because you're paying to play. So I just want to commend you. Thank you so much. This has been amazing. Like, now I'm like ready to run through this drywall here and just go get my day going. Is there any final words before we get out of here?
Well, thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed speaking to you, and I hope your community finds something, even a small change. So I would leave you with this small parting word. If you want to make a change, yes, it starts with your mind, but start small. Start small, and it becomes a habit, and it takes you a long way.
Love it. Mic drop right there. Thank you so much. Those of you who are listening, please subscribe to the podcast. Follow her, follow me, tag us if you're listening to this, and we're going to go ahead and reshare it. I'll see you in the next one, baby. Vamonos.
Close-minded people mad at me that I'm speaking facts. Or maybe could it be that I'm getting racks? Open your mind, gotta open it to receive. I'm always 10 toes for what I believe. Close-minded people mad at me that I'm speaking facts. Or maybe could it be that I'm getting racks? Open your mind, gotta open it to receive. I'm always 10 toes for what I believe.